It's the offseason for the Thunder, and it'll be an interesting one. Another draft, which will now be only the third since OKC began its reconstruction project. You had the Josh Giddey draft, then the Chet Holmgren draft, and now this one. But more than anything, another summer of development to build on the progress that's already been made.
You're doing it! You're becoming mighty!
But before we get to all that, let's take in what we learned from the 82 games, scratch that, 83 games, scratch that, 84 games that the Thunder played this season, because there are a lot of things to learn.
Seems we have a lot to talk about, don't we?
The Thunder got better. Okay, that's obvious, but let's go into the numbers a little to understand how. Win improvement, plus 16. 114.2 offensive rating, which finished 16th in the league, up from 30th last season. A 113.2 defensive rating, which finished tied for 12th, which was up from 17th. And some context on that as well, they were a 10th of a point away from being 10th, which top 10's pretty good. They were a plus 1.0 net rating, 15th, which is up from 27th last year, a plus 9.0 overall improvement. And here's the kicker to it all. These improvements came without any major exterior roster changes. No free agency signings, no trades. The Thunder's young players just got better. They drafted a few more players to add to the group, and then the team just developed. There's a building history of young talent turning into something in OKC, starting back in 2008, which happened with a lot of players. OKC is like a hoops academy, the Hogwarts of basketball, where gifted young hoopers can learn and grow and develop their skills. Scoring champions, MVPs, record breakers, each player with their own curriculum, backed by a personal drive to achieve it. On that, let's talk first about Josh Giddey. In his second season, he posted a line of 16.6 points, 7.9 rebounds, and 6.2 assists, which is pretty good, but also which for a 20-year-old has only ever been done by one other player, this guy. And just look at the splits from last season. Up in points per game, up in efficiency, flat in assists, but down in turnovers, up in rebounds. And still a lot of room to keep growing, most specifically in drawing fouls and shooting free throws. For a player as big and physical as Giddey is, he only attempted 1.9 free throws a game this season. And there are definitely areas for him to take steps forward in drawing more contact and getting to the line. He was way up in and-ones this year, but look at a player like SGA. Year over year, as he's matured and understood the league more, understood officials more, he's gotten to the line more. Giddey could take another efficiency leap himself, doing something similar. Even if it's only by 1 or 2 free throws a game, that would be huge. On the big improvement of the team, the Thunder played 2 really good months of basketball. In January, OKC had a plus 7.6 net rating. And in March, OKC's net rating was just plus 0.6, but they won a lot of their close games. So from January to the end of the season overall, it was plus 3.1. From October to December, though, they were a minus 1.6. So that shows overall, over the 82 or 84 game schedule, that shows the improvement that the team made, but it also shows that the Thunder were still a team under 500 for the entire season. So they're not quite there yet, but they are on their way. SGA is a superstar. He's the youngest player to ever average 30 points per game on 50% shooting. Think about that one. Also, he made first-team All-NBA this season, which is a highly exclusive honor that a lot of great players have never done. There are a lot of areas in which SGA improved to take this leap, but consider a couple of these specifically. 1, free throw shooting. His career numbers before this season was 80%, 80.7%, 80.8%, and 81%. This season, 90.5%. While taking almost 4 more a game. And before I hear anything about being a free throw merchant or whatever you want to call it, 2 things. SGA plays almost entirely below the 3-point line, living in the paint using dekes and moves and angles and misdirection. He plays the game where there is constant contact being made. And secondly, he doesn't bait fouls. Just watch him play. There's no deception going on where he's trying to trick officials for a call. He just uses a bottomless bag of moves and eventually breaks a defender's will. If you really watch SGA play a full game, you'd probably come away thinking he should have shot more free throws than he did. But take a minute to appreciate the craftsmanship in which SGA plays. Behold this shot chart. He scored 31.4 a game and only took 2.5 threes a game. That's wild in the modern NBA for a guard. That's breaking basketball in a new way. The 50-40-90 club is a super exclusive group with only 9 players in it. And SGA didn't make it this season. He was 51, 34.5, 90.5. But it is in play for him. And by the way, scoring 31 a game on his splits, it's only ever been done by one player in NBA history, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Okay, one more thing on SGA. He's also becoming a top-tier defender as well. He led all guards in blocks and was only 3 total away from being the second player ever in NBA history, that seems to be a theme, the other being MJ in this case, to average 30 points plus 1 block and 3 steals. It was a challenge made to him before the season from the coaching staff to be a better defender, and you could say he answered it. And on the SGA and Giddey duo, it got a lot better. Last season, their 2-man lineup data looked like this. This season, it looks like this. That's a pretty solid step. Score one for chemistry and continuity and patience. Sam Presti noted an interesting stat at the end of the season. The Thunder were last in the league in getting into the bonus before their opponents. Their opponents on average were in the bonus a minute more per period and 4 minutes more per game. Just youngest team in the league things there. Isaiah Joe is a weapon. He shot 41% from 3 on 5.4 attempts per game this season, which is extremely good.
I've never seen anything like it.
He had a stretch of hitting 9 consecutive threes at one point this year, which is a Thunder record, and had 10 games of hitting 5 or more in a game. And as a team, the Thunder's shooting got better, beyond Isaiah Joe. They were dead last in the league in three-point shooting last season, but jumped to 17th this season. Again, not just because of Isaiah Joe, it's because OKC generated better shots and also played with more rhythm, where players were catching on-time passes and stepping into shots. While the NBA world debates charges, the Thunder made them a valuable asset this season. They led the league by a wide margin, 27 more than the second-place team, which was the Miami Heat, and without a rim protector, found a resourceful way to protect the paint below the rim. Jalen Williams, who led college basketball in charges taken, led the NBA this season with 43, 10 more than the second-place guy, who was, by the way, Kenrich Williams, and did it in 300 fewer minutes. OKC had 3 of the top 7 charge takers in the league, and would have had more had Kenrich not gotten hurt. The Thunder took major strides in declaring an identity. They led the league in drives per game, used unique offensive quirks like having guards screen for guards, and were able to maintain a pretty high-level defense. You could see the building blocks of who OKC wants to be. On J-Will, he was a pretty surprising stretch 5 this year. He just started shooting threes when he showed up in training camp. That's not something the Thunder expected him to do necessarily, and he ended up hitting 41% on 2.3 attempts per game. Like really, the Thunder didn't draft him thinking he'd be some kind of three-point shooter. He just started firing them up, was very confident in them, and kept on hitting them. That's the kind of discovery and experimentation you get when you let young players figure it out. You go to war with Lou Dort. He's one of the best defenders in the league, but he's also built for the fires of postseason basketball. There were a lot of takes and a lot of feelings on Dort by some this season, but just remember, he shows up. OKC is still super young, and sometimes they show it. Jaylin Williams, J-Dub, is a monster. More coming on him later, but in a season that started with him getting smashed in the face and missing 4 games, he surprised a lot of people around the NBA with his well-rounded game, becoming a Rookie of the Year contender, and ended up finishing second in the voting. He averaged 14.1 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 3.3 assists, including 18.6 points, 5.4 rebounds, and 4.3 assists after the All-Star break. And if you're redrafting the 2022 Draft today, he's a whole lot closer to the top 5 than he is at going 12. Kenrich Williams is the heart and soul of the team. The Thunder really had something going with him as a small ball center, mainly because Kenny Hustle is as gritty and tough a player as there is, and OKC really missed him in the last 2 months of the year after his wrist injury. Don't underestimate him being back next year. It's almost like a huge offseason free agent signing just in getting Kenrich Williams back. Chet Holmgren is healthy, and he will help a lot. But he won't be some magic solution that jumps OKC into a new tier automatically. He'll still be a rookie next season himself, and while sitting out this season may have been a massive blessing in disguise for him as he acclimates to the NBA, it'll still take some time for both him to adjust and now OKC to adjust to him. Poku got better. Before his injury, Poku was a major developmental success story starting opening night for the Thunder, and he was doing a lot of positive things with a much more defined role, primarily at center. He shot 36.5% from 3, was a solid rim protector, and was doing a lot of things big in the offense, moving the ball around for OKC's attackers to find pockets to drive. Aaron Wiggins saved basketball. I still don't really exactly know what that means or even totally how that started. Apparently, it was something that they said when he was a player at Maryland. But regardless, what an awesome role player he is. Wiggins does everything you ask and always shows up. Ousmane Dieng has potential. He had his best game of the season in Atlanta, where he hit a bunch of threes and scored 18 points, but then he broke his wrist right after it and couldn't really get his rhythm back as OKC was in the middle of a playoff push and minutes got tougher to come by. But at 6'10", you can see why so many teams were intrigued by him at the draft. He's got a lot of upside. Appreciate this team and this season. Sam Presti has talked a lot about catalysts and who will be the players that spark the breakthroughs for this team. And it felt like this season had a lot of those kinds of players and moments on it. This young team was something to be proud of, both in how they played, but also how they handled themselves with poise and maturity and composure. Whenever that breakthrough does come, we're going to look back on the 2022-23 Thunder and remember them for being the big-time table setters for it. Next season will be super fun, but it is a new season. There will be no more sneaking up on anyone as the youngest team in the league. The Thunder have the NBA's attention now. There may be some rough spots and some tough stretches, but the growth may be more invisible next season than it was this season. The Thunder made a wild plus 9.0 jump in net rating. That's going to be impossible to replicate. Literally, you can't do that again. So the next step for this team is consistency, turning those 2 good months into 4 good months. And keep in mind, that approach produced this season's jump. And sticking to it and not being distracted is what will produce the next one. And last but not least, hopefully everyone learned a very valuable lesson, especially when it comes to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Always save your predictions and burn your assumptions.